I'm Jean Gray, founder and publisher of American Entrepreneurship Today, a website that brings news and valuable information to entrepreneurs, innovators, and investors all across America. Our podcast series, Experienced Voices, explores the journeys of very successful people in the entrepreneurial arena who are open to sharing the key elements that led to their great success. Our guest today on Experienced Voices is Mysty Rusk, the founder of the San Diego Angel Conference, one of the largest angel events in the country. Mysty shares how the conference has grown since its founding 5 years ago, resulting in hundreds of thousands of dollars going to the winning early-stage tech company. She describes the experiences and takeaways that each accepted applicant company enjoys, even if they are not awarded the grand prize investment. She offers insight for all who are seeking angel funding. When Mysty is not running the conference, she is the executive director of the Knauss School of Business's Free Enterprise Institute, the home of the San Diego Angel Conference, the Brink Small Business Development Center, and the student entrepreneurship programs at the University of San Diego. Mysty is well connected in the angel investing community through her involvement with other angel conferences across the country. She helped with the founding of the Willamette Angel Conference and has worked with the Central California Angel Con, Angel NV, and the Norcor Angel Conference. Mysty, thank you for joining us on Experienced Voices and sharing your knowledge and experience with angel investing.
Hi, Jean. It's great to talk with you again and happy to be back on Experienced Voices.
Well, I know the reason why we're speaking is because the conference is coming and you are running and doing all the things that's going to make it another successful year for angel investing in Southern California. So tell us a little bit about the upcoming conference.
So the conference is the San Diego Angel Conference, Fund 5. So this is our 5th annual angel conference. We're going to hold it this year a little later than usual. So we're going to be April 22nd, 2023. So excited that it's coming. And so the overarching premise of the conference is to activate new angel investors. That's what we set out to do. The byproduct is that we fund companies, which is pretty fun and cool. Everybody wins. So we spend a few months, and actually we have sort of a year-round program that runs up beside this, where we work with founders and entrepreneurs from a whole variety of industries that are at all different stages, that are looking to raise money. And then we run a contest deadline. So the contest deadline is coming right up. It's right around the corner. And once the deadline closes, we consider everybody who applies the applicant pool for this year's conference. So investors will start looking at all of those deals starting in February. They'll spend about 3 months meeting 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a week, looking at those deals carefully. And then every couple of weeks, they narrow the field. So we'll go from what we expect to be around 100 applications in the contest. We'll drop to 24 in the first round, and then we'll bring 24 companies in for a 3-minute pitch, 12 companies. Then we'll come back for a 10-minute pitch. Then we'll choose 6 companies, and we'll spend 5 or 6 weeks on the due diligence for the final 6 companies before we make an award. And what we advertise is that we are going to invest $200,000 in the winning company. So as of today, we already have commitments for over $240,000. So we have a reasonable expectation that when all the money's in the bank and we come to the close, that we will be making awards of probably to more than one company and probably in an amount that's greater than 200,000. But I'd give that to you with the caveat that it always depends on the actual amount of money that we raise. We can't overcommit. There's not a backer or a guarantee by somebody else. This is all angel investors pooling their funds.
When you say raise, because you're saying you may be over a little bit over 200K right now, are you going to your defined angel base associated with, the San Diego conference, or you doing additional outreach and bringing in other investors who are willing to sort of add to this pool?
Yeah, that's a great question. So far in the first 4 cycles, we have 128 investors who've participated in one or more. So there's actually a dozen that have participated in all 4, and then a higher group that's, a higher number that's participated in 3, and so on. But we look to add new investors every year. So we're actively looking for opportunities to meet people who meet the definition. The definition of an accredited investor is somebody who has $1 million net worth that doesn't include their primary residence, or they have a family income of $300,000 or individual income of $200,000 for the last 2 years, with the expectation that that'll continue. Or there was an expansion of the definition in 2019 to add a few things. So there's a few of the FINRA requirements, like the FINRA licenses, that are part of that. There's also a way to become an accredited investor by being what they call a knowledgeable employee. So somebody who's worked for a fund for at least a year and has reasonable understanding of the risk that they're taking, because angel investing is still very, very high risk. So we definitely have a great base that we're going back to with the 128 investors that have played so far, but we're looking to expand that by reaching out to more accredited investors and exposing them to this opportunity.
When you or the judges get to the end of the conference and they're selecting the winner, how many judges are then really making that phenomenal decision? Is it like 2 or 3 people end up facing the pressure, and then you've got this whole stable of other angel investors in the audience holding their breath? How's that work? And has it worked well?
It works well, but it is not what I would consider an efficient process. So the way that it works is every investor purchases 1 or more units, and every unit equates to a vote. So that's technically considered a member managed micro VC fund. That's technically how we're considered. So if we have 100 investors that each have a minimum of 1 unit, every one of them gets a vote. And then we have a way that we line this out in our organizing documents that any one investor can buy multiple units, but you can only have what we call 4 active units. So an active units comes with voting rights, passive units don't come with voting rights. And so it helps us keep the process democratized. So every investor has the opportunity. They don't all weigh in on the decision making, but every investor has the opportunity to be part of the decision making process at every stage of the contest.
So we had discussed this before. The $200K goes to the first company selected for an investment. So it's not a grand prize, but an actual investment into the startup or early stage company. So is it $200K, and does everyone know, or at least the entrepreneur knows, that it's an investment?
Yeah, so we try and make it abundantly clear from the very beginning that it's an investment, that we have a expectation of return, and our hope is that it's going to be a good return on each of those investments. We always say it's a winner take all event at the 200,000 mark. However, we have raised more than that. So the first year we raised over 500,000. Last year we raised over 700,000. Actually, the last 2 years we've raised over 700,000. So last year's winner, a company called Carry Health, walked away with an investment of 350,000. It was the first money in, and I think there was a press release that went out just last week that shows that they've raised over $2 million and closed their round just in the last week. So that's super exciting for us. Since we have raised more than our goal, we've funded more than one company each year. So we just closed out our year 4, starting year 5. And in year 4, we funded 3 companies. The second place company walked away with, I think, around $247,000. And then the third place company received $150,000. So we're able to, we have a portfolio of a total of 14 companies so far.
Oh. And they go through due diligence, I assume, and that's part of the deal, that they pass the due diligence?
Yeah. So in the last 5 or 6 weeks of the conference, there's always a fund manager that's elected, or sometimes we have fund co-managers. This year we've got co-managers of the fund. So it's two people that are splitting the responsibilities. But those fund managers will sit down with each of the final 6 companies, and they'll negotiate the terms of the deal in those final weeks. And that's part of our due diligence process. So in the due diligence process, we start off, we've got a questionnaire that we share. We ask for a ton of documents. We'll do a site visit. We want to talk to customers if we can. We just have a whole variety of things that we do, always with the same goal in mind. The goal is to get to yes. And I think that's something that defines our conference separately from a lot of others out there. We're not just trying to pick a winner. We're trying to help companies get to yes. And so when you come with that approach, it changes your perspective. It's not just that we're trying to identify risks. We're trying to identify how we as a group could help mitigate those risks. So maybe we have people we can bring to the table, or we have outside networks or additional funds, like all of the things that it takes to make a company successful. We do our best to try and surround those companies with resources, not just to see if we can find fault with their, business model or their customer thinking or any of the, dozens of things that companies are trying to figure out when they're at this stage.
So I'm the entrepreneur, and I have heard about your conference, and I need to catch the attention of anyone and everyone to go through this process. So on the application part of it, is the application long? And what does it entail that I'm sitting here and saying, hey, I can fill out that application and give it a shot?
Right. So you can find the application. It's on Gust, or it's on the website. So if you go to thesdangels.com, there's an apply page there with a button that links over to Gust. So Gust is how we manage the deals in the portfolio. In the first couple weeks of the contest, investors are assigned to teams, and each team has a certain number of companies to review. And then we share all of that information with all of the investors. And every investor has the right, they don't all do it, but every investor has the right to look at every single deal. So, there's a tremendous amount of activity that happens in the first couple weeks of the conference. And companies emerge at that point, right? So I can't tell you how to capture the attention or to get the group. Sometimes it's the video. So we require a 60-second video. And sometimes the video is compelling and people really rally for that. Sometimes it's, the actual problem that they're solving. If somebody in your family has dealt with a particular health concern, that there's a company that's working to resolve, some aspect of that health concern, those tend to draw people out of the woodwork, or other areas of expertise. So we had quite a number of investors that had made money in real estate. And so when we've had property tech kinds of things, they feel uniquely qualified to look at the practical aspects of some of those. And that happens for each industry. So our investor group is really broad. I used to say, like things like, well, we're not all, brain surgeons and rocket scientists, but turns out in our group, we have a brain surgeon and a rocket scientist, which is a little bit of fun. And so, at the end of the day, the investors are getting to know each other and relying on each other's strengths to help navigate this process with the companies.
The 60-second video that you referenced, is that part of the application?
Yeah. So the 60-second video is part of the application. The applicants upload the video, and there's also an FAQ on our website that talks about that 60-second video. I think for a lot of us, maybe particularly, my generation and those that are maybe a little bit more chronologically sophisticated, making a video can be an overwhelming task. I'd rather go raise $1 million than make a 60-second video. However, we're not looking for high production values. What we're really looking for is a way to, get a little bit of flavor about the company and understand the basics. So, just you can, what is that saying that people say? Like a picture's worth 1,000 words, right?
Something like that.
60 seconds of like helping us get to know you. So in our process, as I mentioned, investors split into teams and look at the deals. Everybody's assigned a group of deals, but we ask that every investor look at every video. That's why we limit it to 60 seconds.
Now, my venture has, and my 60-second video has been well received. What is the next touch point? Is it still online, or when you drop down from 100 to the next stage, when does the one-to-one or one to small group of investors happen in real life, real time?
Yeah, so the next natural stage is what we call the 3-minute pitches. So we invite the top 24 companies in for, this year it'll be a live cocktail party and networking with the investors. So, and we do it over 2 days. So we'll have 12 companies on each day. So 12 companies, approximately 70 investors in the room. So the odds for a company are really great. And then after after some networking time, then we sit down to do the actual pitches. So the pitches those nights are limited to 3 minutes. And then we have what we call moderated Q&A. And that first round of Q&A, we have one person who's in charge of asking all the questions, and she happens to be an expert in unconscious bias. So it's a learning opportunity for everyone. And it's one of the things that I think makes our conference unique and our outcomes substantial, is that we've got this huge commitment to transparency and to incorporating bias training from start to finish. So I wouldn't say that if you look at the companies in our portfolio, majority of them are women. 3 out of 4 of our winners have been women. But I wouldn't say that we have a process that provides any advantages to women or minorities. What we have is a super transparent process that helps us pick the very best companies, which have happened to be women and minorities.
How many of your investors, because most angel and even VC funding is male dominated, so how many women in your investor pool or group that ends up is women versus men and has ended up choosing 3 women? So a small portion.
I've never gone and looked to see the gender of the investors and if they voted for men or women founders. Like, I have never gone to look. That's sort of a there's a bit of, like, now I'm curious. I could go and look. But in terms of like overall number of investors, our numbers are higher than the national average for gender equality, and still not. So last year we were 38% women, which is substantially better than the national average.
38% of your 38% of your angel investors are women.
38% of our investors last year were women.
Well,
Yeah.
because the challenge I keep hearing out there, and we're talking about venture capital, but they keep saying that the number of 2 to 3% of venture capital money going to women really, is quite distant from what you guys are doing at the angel level with a high portion of women investors. I mean, it sounds like a very good opportunity that you're changing some of the things in the industry. So
actually, if I look at the number of companies we've funded, 9 out of the 11 were run by women, founded by women. So, or I shouldn't say that. Let me count again. 3, 6, 10 out of 14.
Oh.
So we have 14 companies in our portfolio. 10 of them are companies that are run by women.
But even then, you're still gaining the support of the male investor. And that's what's most important is, well, there's two factors from my point of view, more women investing and more men being open to investing in women founded or lead companies being led by a woman. So let's kind of like pivot a bit, and you know who the winners are. And I had mentioned about catching the eye of the angel. So when you look back on any of the winners, is there anything that stands out to you, that what they did, or were they in a trend, or did they surprise you guys as the person went through the different stages that they became better or more visible to the angels that were reviewing them?
You know, I think a couple of times there's been a clear winner early on. And a couple of times it's been a surprise at the last minute. So, and I don't know that, you know, with all of these years of experience now under our belts with this, not a lot of years, but, you know, we've got a few years under our belt here in San Diego. I don't know if I could tell you specific, like that there was anything that happened along the way that made that the way that it is. I'm not sure. So I would say for each of the companies that have done well in our process, they had a good handle on their customer path, like the path to the customer, and, you know, where the money would come from, even if they weren't in revenue yet. I would say each of them was led by a founder who was a very good communicator, and hadn't just thought through the polish of giving a presentation, but had really thought through the fundamentals behind it. So when we started to ask those hard questions, they were prepared for that. And I think each of them, you know, came to our process, just having done their homework in advance, right? Like, so, I don't know if everybody had a full data room ready to go for the due diligence process, but each of them were able to quickly find the answers to all the questions that we were asking and put the materials together in a way that we could sort through them. So, you know, I don't know, and we've funded so many different kinds of companies, everything from, you know, like hard manufactured things to water technologies to biotech. It's been real variety. So I would say right founder, right time, good product market fit, real path to customer. I don't think it's any one thing. I think it's a number of things working together.
Well, let me flip it another way, is financial projections always seem to be the challenge of the first-time entrepreneur. Do any of the entrepreneurs who are getting further along in the judging process, does their financial projections become more important? Or you think at that point, the weaknesses that they may have had in their projections have been worked out so that they are well prepared to be challenged on their numbers?
Yeah, I think, you know, you can look at a set of financial projections at a cursory level and they can look just right. But then when you get in and you start to ask some of the questions, you start to say, does this set of financial projections follow the story that they're telling? And do we believe that this team can execute on this, on this plan? So I think it always comes back to like the whole picture, and not just being able to, our process, our process tries hard to address things at the fundamental level, not just at the presentation level. So we're always trying to help the companies gear up for, not like I always say, like, we're not trying to get you through the first meeting. We're trying to get you through the third, right? We're trying to get you to the place where they actually want to take a deep look at your technology, and, whether that means bringing somebody else in to help evaluate that, and to really sit down and start to really study the company and develop a partnership with the founder. So
are they being prepped after, if I'm one of the 100 accepted, do I receive any type of coaching after I'm accepted, or was most of the coaching done before the application process? So where do you guys help with the learning curve?
Yeah, Gina, it's another really great question. So we work really closely with about 25 other partners across the San Diego region. And that's everybody from San Diego sports innovators to the other universities to JLabs to NextCubed. So we work with a ton of different people, and they all help us funnel companies into this process, and they all take some measure to work with the companies in the pre-application phase. We also run the Brink Small Business Development Center, which is our own version of that. And so, we have quite a few companies that come out of that process and apply for the Angel Conference. And of the companies that have won and get to the finals, one of the things that we ask in the application process is, have you worked with anybody? And what we found is most of the companies that make it to the finals have worked with 2 or 3 of our close strategic partners here in town. Now, once the application's over, there's a couple of weeks between the application deadline and the kickoff for the investors. And during that window, we pull in the team of consultants from the Brink SBDC, and they try and get through every company and review the applications and provide some feedback. So sometimes that's just really high level feedback, like, hey, I really like what you're saying here, but this little piece is confusing. And sometimes what we find is somebody's entered the process far too early and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And then we try and do some additional engagement to help them get where they want to be down the road.
Are you ever seeing a entrepreneur from across the country who's trying to wiggle their way into your funding conference?
The first year we ran this conference, we said you had to be within a day's drive of San Diego. And then the second year, we opened it up to like a little bit further than that. But then, of course, in our second year, we were just, a few days away from our conference when COVID hit, and we didn't delay or postpone. We were able to move to a video presentation. But by the time we started year 3, sort of all bets are off. We'd attracted investors from across the country. We'd attracted companies from across the country. And our winner of the San Diego Angel Conference 3 is a company out of Seattle. So they're actually in Bellevue, Washington. The company's name's Avocat AI, and they're a legal tech play, but not even close to being around here. And then year 4, not the winning company, but the runner-up, Hera Biotech. They're a company out of Texas. They're in San Antonio. So we actually have managed to draw. We have about 15% of our investors that are not in California, and a smaller number of companies, but from across the country.
It sounds like you are following pretty much the process that goes on here on the East Coast as far as formalization of how presentations are done. I think maybe not now, but years ago it used to be, and maybe you would know, is that everyone was getting on a plane to Silicon Valley because they didn't need a pitch deck. They didn't need this. They could just go to the coffee shop and find someone to write a check. Now, that's Silicon Valley. You're down in San Diego. Are you bumping into any entrepreneurs in the coffee shop and your investors writing checks like that? Is Is that even true, even about Silicon Valley, that checks get written that way?
I think there's some truth to that for Silicon Valley. Until last year, I split time between the Bay Area and San Diego, and I don't think that happens the way it used to. Like the number of angel groups and venture capitalists have just evaporated over the last few years, and Silicon Valley doesn't quite hold the same position that it once did. At the same time, we're doing everything we can to build this environment in San Diego. So I occasionally will find myself in a coffee shop and I will start to hear somebody pitching something next to me. And like, I never know if I'm supposed to cover my ears or join the conversation. But we're getting closer. And we are seeing a lot more activity in the San Diego region than we were, just a few years ago.
And that is the trend. When I was out at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit in 2016, it was pretty cool. But I remember it was President Obama, and I think he was interviewing Mark Zuckerberg. But one of the themes they kept saying is, you all don't have to come to Silicon Valley anymore, where there are places all over America to grow. But from that, you could see these, entrepreneurial ecosystems popping up, tech hubs, they're being identified. So it sounds like from our conversation that San Diego has followed that trend, and you're seeing the results of your efforts. Because you were saying it's only a 5-year effort to bring the ecosystem, just forward.
Sure. Of our, that our overarching goal is to activate angels. That's what we want to see. We have a student who spends the summer. So this is all part of University of San Diego's Innovation Entrepreneurship Program. So we've got a student over the summer who tracks all the companies and chases down all the investors and asks them all kinds of questions. And we know that the 128 investors that have been a part of our process have gone outside and joined 34 other groups. So some of them are their alumni groups. We've got a partner in New Fund San Diego, which was formerly TCA San Diego. New Fund has 25 of their members started out with us, or they've gone back and forth. We work super closely with some of them, and so it's super interesting to see the activity take a life of its own. So of our 128, 4 of those investors have gone on to start their own funds. As I mentioned, we've joined a bunch of others. And when we watch the activity across both investors and entrepreneurs, we're over 190 million in capital tied to this. So either the companies went out and found money, regardless if it was from angels we've worked with, or the angels have gone out and found deals, regardless if it was any of the companies that applied through our process. We just want to know that it's having an influence on the ecosystem, and it, looks like it's working. So
success brings confidence. And so I do remember our other conversations, and you must feel very good that now your pool's money, what you've done in prior years, and that it keeps growing. So as we wrap up, is there any last line you would want to say to entrepreneurs? And I'll give you the last word. How's that?
Oh, wow. I really wish I could pull off something absolutely profound in this moment. But, I think sometimes when you build something that's bigger than yourself, it'll outlast you. And it feels like San Diego Angel Conference is here to stay. So we've had such a fantastic group of people involved, all the way from the companies through the investors and the fund managers. So it's just been a really great place to get to be a part of something that's really special. And so if I had one thing that I would say about the whole of it, is that it feels like we're making a difference on some of the big challenges that the world's facing. So, and it doesn't matter where you look, if it's material science or if it's pharmaceuticals or if it's things that just make your life more pleasant or efficient. We're chipping away at big hurdles that are happening across the world, and it's pretty exciting to get to be a part of something like that.
For sure. Well, thank you, Misty, for sharing your background and an experience with running the conference, and I look forward to finding out the winner this year and what the pool ends up being. So again, appreciate your time and sharing your experience, maybe, and your wisdom.
Well, Jean, it's great, and thank you so much for having me on Experience Voices.
You've been listening to the podcast series Experience Voices, hosted by Jean Gray, publisher of American Entrepreneurship Today. Sign up for the series at americanentrepreneurship.com/podcasts.